If you're into retro gaming handhelds, you may have already come across my reviews on the brand new 350 devices. And if you're like most people in the comments section, you've certainly got an opinion on one or both of these devices. Today, we're going to cover one of the most frequently asked questions that I've gotten thus far. What's better, the RG350 or the Kiddy 350H? As a quick side, I want to say that I'm very humbled by the response this channel has gotten so far. Everyone that took the time to subscribe, leave a comment, or like the video helped get these products on screen right now. This is your channel more than it is mine, and I hope to always keep it that way. When I did my Kiddy 350H review, I purposely stayed away from doing direct comparisons between it and its 350 counterpart because I wanted each of those devices' reviews to be able to stand on their own. Those reviews represent everything that I would personally want to know if I was considering picking up one of these devices, knowing full well how easy it is to lose hours watching reviews of a single device hoping to find that one detail that no one else is talking about. This video is a little different. Today I'm going to talk to you not as a viewer, but as a close friend, and even though I know nothing about you, I will try to give you my unbiased, no affiliate link in the description box below view of which of these devices, if any, are the best for your situation. This video is going to be broken up into 4 different sections covering one aspect of each device. If I leave something out that you want to know, leave a comment and I will make sure to address it. First up, let's cover the features of both devices. The most obvious difference between both of these devices is without a doubt their ports and physical buttons. The RG350 controversially split the axis of this device by placing 2 joysticks on opposite halves of the device, splitting the D-pad and the A-B-X-Y buttons. If you've watched my review on the unit, then you already know that I've pointed out some glaring issues with this layout, mainly being the fact that your thumb can bump into the right joystick during play whenever you need to hit the B button. If you're someone with big hands, this is probably going to be a huge issue for you. Aside from this, I have to say that this splitting of the axis hasn't led to any hand cramping from any of my longer play sessions, but this is definitely going to be a your mileage may vary type of thing. If you are someone that gets hand cramps easily, this may not be the device for you. The Kiddy 350 on the other hand has a much more traditional layout with a D-pad that feels identical to its 350 counterpart. The ABXY buttons on the other hand are considerably easier on the hand, with far less pressure required to make contact with the board. This unit does have the obvious disadvantage of having only a single joystick, but there are very few instances where something like that is useful with the current software that we have. Additionally, while the joystick doesn't have as much grip as the 350, its lower profile means that this device is much easier to place in your pocket, even though both devices should fit with no issues. The top of the device is where things really start to diverge, depending on your use case scenario for this device. The RG350 has a full set of shoulder buttons, while the Kiddy 350 unfortunately does not. This device can be modded to add that feature to the backplate by wiring switches to the board, but this is definitely something that you will not get out of the box. We also have access to more I/O on the RG350 with 2 USB-C ports. It may not be obvious why something like that would be worthwhile, but it does open up the possibility for charging your device while connecting various wireless controllers or gamepads to the unit. I like to think of this OTG port as an expansion slot. Many of the useful things that we could use this for probably don't exist yet, but they might in the next couple of months worth of development. It's also worth mentioning that the Kiddy has OTG support, but it uses a micro USB cable to perform that function. More on that later. The bottom of the RG350 also holds another big difference between these units: the speakers. I've covered sound quality for both of these devices in their own reviews, but I will just reiterate here, the RG350 has higher sound quality than the Kiddy 350 for what that's worth. Here is a side-by-side recording of both of these devices for comparison purposes. The last thing that I want to cover in this section are the IPS displays on these units. I've wrestled with this topic for a long time, trying to figure out exactly what was going on here. Based on my filming, I know that the IPS displays on these units are without a doubt different, but I couldn't tell if I thought that the Kiddy screen was better only because it didn't have a glass covering it. Let's get something easier out of the way. The display on the Kiddy is objectively brighter than the RG350. What's more difficult to determine is the quality of the IPS. In my personal opinion, the display is subjectively better in terms of picture quality and clarity. It's the first thing that you're going to notice if you have both of these devices in your hands. The next section is a little more difficult to talk about given how new each of these units are, But if you really care about having a device that's 100% open source, then that's going to be the RG350 at this point. Things will most likely change in the future once the Kiddy 350 fully ships around the world in the following weeks and the developer opens up their device. But as it stands right now, there are people each day working on making improvements to the RG350, some of which is featured in this video. If you're interested in working directly with the community, you can follow those developments by joining the Retro Handheld Discord linked in the description box below. Now, I want to talk specifically about where I see the biggest differences in these units, and that's going to be in their emulation performance. I'm breaking this down into 4 sections, but there could very well be a ton more. If you're specifically interested in the performance of the RG350 for a given system, you can take a look at my RG350 playlist linked on screen now. The first system that I want to talk about is SNES. If you're familiar with my RG350 work on this system, you know that essentially everything is playable at 60 FPS. But there were some issues with some titles like Star Fox and Secret of Mana. These are the titles that I would classify as playable on this device with frame skip enabled, whereas everything else runs flawlessly. When I made that review, I didn't know that these problems could easily be corrected by using RetroArch or a second SNES emulator. The performance in both of these titles increases drastically to the point where I would say SNES performance on this unit is without a doubt top-notch. The Kiddy 350, on the other hand, has some strange issues that will require some ironing out once more developers get their hands on this device. It's not something that should be a difficult fix, as the horsepower of this unit is without a question able to handle this system. Visual stuttering is invisible in all titles that you see, but it was evident in the collection of SNES titles that I tested in my larger review of the unit. As it currently stands, the RG350 is the clear victor when it comes to SNES emulation, but I think these units will be identical after more work is done to refine the software. Quick little update. While I was working on this video in the editing phase, I ended up deciding to test out one of the emulators that I was using on my RG350 to see if I would still have the same performance problems. What you see on screen now is definitely a huge improvement in all of the titles that I had issues with before, although this is using an outdated emulator that has not been supported in a long time. There have been a ton of requests for arcade tests for each of these systems, and I have to say that I base a lot of what I test on viewer feedback, as I'm definitely new to the majority of arcade titles out there. I haven't really done the RG350 justice with these titles as of yet, so I want to take the time to do so now. In this section, we are going to compare the performance of these units using Neo Geo and a collection of other titles to see which is the clear winner in terms of performance. There's no audio out for this section because the RG350 doesn't play nice with my camera, so please bear with me. The titles on screen right now are pretty solid on both systems, but there are some games out there that simply do not run well on the RG350. Some of those titles are so obscure that I didn't even bother trying to record them for this video, as I don't think that that's a really good representation of either of these systems. In these videos, I only found one title that chugged on the RG350, but it wasn't a game that I was familiar with at all. In my personal opinion, I wouldn't pick one of these devices over the other simply just for their arcade performance. PlayStation 1 is without a question the best system to see what we can get with that added 500 MHz processor speed from the Kiddy 350. In the last few days, I've been testing all of the PS1 titles that I could get my hands on. Let's first confront the elephant in the room. Without the added R2 and L2 buttons, it's just a fact that you're going to not be able to play some of the games that require those buttons as it currently stands. I'm going to include some of those titles here, but there are many more that I could include. If those titles are deal breakers for you, then the Kiddy 350 is probably not the device for you. Technically, the Kiddy has L2 and R2 support that I was never told about. While I was in the process of editing this video, someone told me a way to get it working, which you can see on screen now. There are 2 ways that you can do this, and this isn't the best title for this test, but I didn't feel like I should cherry pick a title for this showcase. Your first option is going to be to use the joystick to perform the buttons, but this is going to have some obvious downsides if you're playing a racing game. The second way is better, except that it kills the driving function on Twisted Metal. You can hold down the select button and one of the shoulder buttons to access the missing button. For each of these tests, I want you to focus on 2 key pieces of data, the FPS and the CPU utilization. The FPS is important because you obviously are going to want to play these titles at full speed, but CPU utilization is arguably more important, as the headroom will determine if you will face any potential bottlenecks further in the game title. This is technically something that both systems support, but it's the biggest reason why I love to play PS1 on the Game Kiddy instead of my RG. Pressing start and select removes the frame limit cap and allows you quick access to turbo mode, which with the faster processor means you can breeze through grinding in RPGs. I want to round out this section by talking briefly about battery life. I've done a lot of battery drains on these devices in the last few days with PS1 titles at max brightness, so I can comfortably say that you can expect 3 to 5 hours of screen on time with more demanding titles. The kicker here is the fact that the Kiddy 350 takes about an hour longer to fully charge from my experience. It's difficult to say where development will get us in the future with either of these devices, as it really only takes one passionate person to make something amazing. I get questions every day about if one of these devices supports X system. As it currently stands, you should consider both of these devices identical in their capacity to support future systems, with the Kiddy 350 potentially able to eke out more performance and frame rates due to the faster processor. The RG350 technically supports more advanced consoles in some form at this point, solely based on the fact that the device was built off of years of work done by the GCW0 developers. This is why we have things like an N64 emulator on the device with the ability to play some N64 titles at respectable speeds. Hopefully these points have given you enough information to help answer which of these is better for you personally. Pick a device that has the best features and performance for what you want to do with it at the best price possible and enjoy the rest. My name is Taki and I've been your host in this video. If you like what you saw and you want to support more device reviews in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Now get out and enjoy the rest of your day. Taki out.